Hey, yeah, how's everybody doing? So this video is regarding Trump's pre-election declination. So that's Trump's decision to not recognize Joe Biden as the president-elect. We're going to talk about what's happening and why he's doing this. So, bottom line, when I first heard about this, when Associated Press and the other news organizations declared Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as president and vice president elect, and Trump, the fact that Trump did not concede to the election results reminded me of what's happened before in third world countries or developing countries. It kind of reminded me a little bit of how back in 2008 you had Robert Mugabe, who is the incumbent president of Zimbabwe. So the challenger ended up winning the election. And Robert Mugabe, he pretty much said, despite what the election says, I'm going to remain president. And that's pretty much what happened. There's different variances to what actually happened, but in the end, Robert Mugabe stayed in as president even though he lost the popular vote. Not something that you really expect to happen in a great democracy like the U.S. However, folks, here we are. It has happened. We have an incumbent president who doesn't want to concede, and we are not a true democracy. So my definition of a true democracy is that you have the citizens who actually vote in a president. And that's actually not what we have here in the U.S. In the U.S., we have what's called the Electoral College. And it's that Electoral College that actually decides, in the end, ultimately, who becomes president. It is not the popular vote. The way and a lot of people don't know this, but the way the Constitution is written, it states that it is the Electoral College that decides who the president. What's also stated in that is that the Electoral College does not necessarily have to side on what the popular vote results have been, right? So you have an Electoral College on one side, you have a popular vote, even though the popular vote may decide on a certain state, right? Again, it's that electoral delegate that decides the vote, right? Collectively, of course, right? And so that electoral delegate does not necessarily have to, by the Constitution, they do not necessarily have to side with the popular vote. Right? That does happen from time to time. So it happened in the 1850s or something like that when Horace Greeley, right? Apparently, I guess he was elected, but then he died after the election. So you had the Electoral College that actually did not back up the popular vote. Makes sense. However, you do have situations where you had these rogue voters that these rogue delegates or faithless electoral voters, right, where they did not side with the popular vote. So this happened as recent as 2016, where you actually the presidential election, where you actually had, I believe it was 7 to 10 voters that did not side with the populist vote. You had actually people that did not want to vote for Hillary Clinton, right? We're talking about these electoral college delegates. They did not vote for Hillary Clinton. Instead, they voted for, I believe one voted for Colin Powell, another one voted for some other people. But any event, it does happen. However, there are states that have elected, right, through legislation, through laws, they actually can penalize, right? There are actually laws that are punishable for these delegates if they do not vote in sync with the popular vote, right? I believe it is New Mexico. You actually have, if that does happen, they can go to jail for up to 18 months, right? If that delegate does not vote in sync with the popular vote, right? Most states that penalize that electoral delegate, they can fine, or just not count the vote, right? However, there are 16 states that do not bind the delegate to vote in line with the popular vote, right? They allow their delegate to vote independently. So let's kind of go into why Trump is doing this, right? He's not conceding. He's taking the court. Georgia, I believe, is already going into a recount, and he's pushing for Pennsylvania to go that way as well. Well, he's doing this because he believes he has a chance of overturning this. And he's going to try to overturn this by counting on the Electoral College delegates to not vote in line with what the popular vote voted. So even if they do a recount, right? So step number one, do a recount. He has the most votes so that he can get the delegates for Pennsylvania and Georgia, right? So that's step one, probably not going to happen. Step two is appeal to those Electoral College to have them overturn or vote differently than what the populace vote. Then he stays president. And guess what? Remember before I said there are 16 states that don't penalize or don't that truly allow their electoral delegates vote independently. And two of those 16 states are Pennsylvania and Georgia. They have total control to vote how they see fit. So if Trump can appeal to those electoral delegates in Georgia and in Pennsylvania, guess what? He wins and not Joe Biden. All right. So if he does that, that would give him an extra 36 to his already 232 delegates, and that brings him up to 268, which means he still needs two more. So his next bet is Arizona. Again, why is he doing it? He's doing it because he believes that he can win legally. Whether he actually believes there's voting fraud or not, do I think that he actually believes that? No, I don't believe. I think that's just a ploy, getting him closer to where he wants to be with influencing the Electoral College delegates in the state of Georgia and in the state of Pennsylvania to bring him up to 268, and then could be Arizona or maybe another state that actually brings them over to 270. But that is what Trump is looking at. What I'm about to say is my opinion, but I believe that Trump, because of his aggressive nature and because of his competitive nature, he wants to win. He's you might have seen on some of the news outlets, they say that he's a sore loser. I think he even says that he doesn't like to lose. Nobody likes to lose, but Trump, if there's he's the type of person, if there's a will, there's a way, and he's pursuing that. This is the manifestations of if there's a will, there's a way. He sees there's a possibility of him pulling this off, and therefore he's, we got all this things that seem, very undemocratic. He's taking advantage of our country, our great nation, not being a true democracy. And so will it happen? His chances of doing this are not great, but he's going to pursue it. He's one of those individuals. If there's a will, there's a way, and this is the manifestations of if there's a will, there's a way. He doesn't like losing. Therefore, he sees this possibility, and he's going to go for it. And he's taking legal action, and he's speaking out. He's tweeting, fraud, fraud, fraud. He's got to, overturn or influence the the Electoral College delegates in Pennsylvania and Georgia to vote in his favor. Mid-December, the Electoral College, that's when they actually vote on the president and vice president. It'll be interesting. The middle of December is when the Electoral College votes, so we'll see what happens. Until then, interesting times ahead. All right.